Stack Overflow. For years, it's been, well, the undisputed digital bedrock for developers everywhere, hasn't it? That place you always went to get unstuck.
Absolutely. It was foundational. You almost couldn't imagine coding without it at one point.
Yeah, so to hear it's almost, that's not just surprising. It feels like a seismic shift for the whole industry.
It really does.
So today, we're diving deep into exactly how a platform that was so ubiquitous, so essential, reached this, well, critical point.
Mm.
We're drawing insights from an article by the pragmatic engineer called Stack Overflow is Almost Dead.
A pretty provocative title.
It is. Our mission here is to trace the timeline of this decline, figure out the key factors, both, the long-term community stuff and these recent tech tidal waves.
Right, like AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then consider what this means for how we all find and share knowledge now, in tech, and maybe even beyond.
It's a fascinating story, almost a cautionary tale, really, about how quickly things can change online. Yeah, it reveals a lot about user behavior, community dynamics, that delicate balance.
Okay, let's unpack this. How did a site that felt like an indispensable lifeline reach this point?
Well, the first thing is the data itself. It's quite stark.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. The article reveals using data from Mark Gravel, who's like a top 10 all-time contributor there.
So someone who really knows the platform.
Right. His data shows the number of questions asked on Stack Overflow has just plummeted. We're talking levels last seen way back when it first launched in 2009.
Wow, 2009 levels. That's a huge drop.
It's a massive regression for a platform that was so dominant.
What's fascinating here is how dramatic this slump is. It really illustrates a rapid shift in user behavior, doesn't it? For a platform that used to be the place for problem solving.
Totally synonymous with getting help.
Yeah. It clearly shows developers are changing how they look for information. A rapid change.
And here's the kicker, right? This decline, it didn't just start with, say, ChatGPT or the latest AI tools.
No, not at all. The data shows questions actually started to decline around 2014, way back then.
Yeah.
So what was happening in 2014?
Yeah, that's the crucial part. If we connect this to the bigger picture, 2014 was when Stack Overflow significantly improved, or let's say increased, moderator efficiency.
Okay, efficiency. What did that look like?
Well, questions were closed faster, a lot more questions got closed, and things flagged as low quality were removed much more efficiently.
Sounds good on paper, maybe. Better quality control.
Ostensibly, yes. But it seems to have had some unforeseen consequences for the community feel.
That lines up with the personal anecdote from the article's author. He mentions this timing tallies with his own memory of the site starting to feel, well, unwelcoming.
Unwelcoming, how so?
He described it almost like moderators had gone on a power trip. And it actually didn't just stop asking questions there around that time.
Wow. So that push for efficiency, for quality, maybe felt overly harsh to some users.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's where the human element, that sort of community bond, maybe first started to fray a bit.
This raises a really important question then. How much did this shift in community culture, potentially making users feel unwelcome, or even, chastise, contribute to that initial downward trend?
Years before AI was really on the scene.
Exactly. It suggests the social dynamics, the user experience were already having a pretty big impact. It wasn't just about the answers, but how you got them.
Okay, so we've got this early decline starting around 2014, linked to moderation changes. But then, looking at the timeline again, we hit March 2020.
Right, the pandemic.
Yeah, and the data shows this surprising temporary surge in traffic. What was that about? Gave it a bit of a boost.
It really did. That surge lines up perfectly with the start of pandemic lockdowns and everyone suddenly working remotely.
Ah, okay. So developers couldn't just lean over and ask their colleague a quick question anymore.
Precisely. They were isolated. So naturally, they turned to Google, which often led them straight to Stack Overflow. It became that primary lifeline again, temporarily.
Almost like an artificial boost driven by circumstance.
You could say that, yeah, because it was pretty short-lived.
Right. The article points out, by June 2020, just a few months later, questions started to decline again, and this time even faster than before.
Faster than the pre-pandemic decline.
Yeah. And strikingly, this is still like 2 years before ChatGPT was even a public thing.
So that brief pandemic surge just sort of delayed the inevitable acceleration downwards. It didn't fix the underlying trend.
Seems like it. Which brings us to another key moment, June 2021.
The sale.
Exactly. Stack Overflow sold for, what was it, $1.8 billion
Uh-huh.
to Prosus, a private equity investor.
A huge sum.
And the article's author makes this interesting point, suggesting the founders, Jeff Atwood and Joel Spolsky, sold with near-perfect timing.
Implying they knew what was coming.
Well, the author hints at an impending terminal decline, suggests maybe they saw the writing on the wall, these fundamental shifts already happening.
Interesting perspective, selling at the peak perhaps, just before the really sharp drop.
Which leads us to the next big event, November 2022.
Enter ChatGPT.
Right. And the article's data shows an immediate, rapid, steep decline in questions right after its public release. It's like the floor just dropped out.
It really is dramatic on the graph, like falling off a cliff compared to the previous steadier decline.
So what does this sudden, massive acceleration tell us? It's clearly linked to AI, but why the huge impact?
What's fascinating here is why developers might actually prefer something like ChatGPT. It boils down to a few things.
Okay.
One, it's faster. You get an answer almost instantly. Two, the quality is often pretty similar. And why wouldn't it be?
Because
These models, like ChatGPT, were heavily trained on Stack Overflow's own data.
the irony. So it learned from the very platform it's now disrupting.
Exactly. And maybe the most crucial point, ChatGPT is polite. It answers all questions. You don't get told your question is stupid or a duplicate or closed by a moderator.
Right. That's a stark contrast to the sometimes, let's be honest, perceived harshness or gatekeeping of the human moderators we talked about earlier.
It's a frictionless experience compared to the potential friction of the community model.
So we've gone from maybe a tough love professor vibe on Stack Overflow
Yeah,
to this perfectly polite AI tutor that never judges.
that's a good way to put it.
Honestly, after years of staring at duplicate question warnings myself, I can definitely see the appeal. Who hasn't wished for a tool that just answers the darn question without the side eye?
It removes that whole layer of social anxiety or fear of judgment.
So the article's conclusion is pretty stark then. It says, these LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT, they're making Stack Overflow irrelevant.
Yeah, the author frames it now as a question of when it winds down, not if.
Wow. When, not if.
It really underscores a broader trend, doesn't it? The experience of getting information is becoming just as critical as the information itself.
Efficiency, politeness, instant gratification.
Yeah, often winning out over the slower, sometimes more challenging path of community interaction.
Still, the article conveys this real sense of sadness about it all, calls it a true shame.
Understandably.
For a site that genuinely helps so many developers get unstuck, and it gamified helping others, that whole system of upvotes, reputation points, badges, it made contributing feel like a cool, collaborative game.
It tapped into that desire for recognition and contribution.
Yeah, the author personally mentions missing that human interaction, recalling the pride of getting my first upvote, that unique feeling, right? Being recognized by another human for being helpful.
And that's something AI just doesn't replicate, does it? That human connection, that validation from peers.
Not in the same way.
While AI is incredibly efficient for finding information, that human aspect, the shared struggle, the mutual help, the simple joy of getting that upvote, that's a different kind of value entirely.
True. But the article does offer a bit of a forward look, suggesting that spaces where developers do hang out and help each other will continue to be popular.
Right. The need for community help isn't vanishing. It's maybe just changing shape or location.
So it's evolving from maybe a structured Q&A archive like Stack Overflow to more informal hangout spaces.
Potentially, yes. The article mentions things like Discord servers, WhatsApp groups, Telegram channels.
What makes those platforms maybe better suited for this new kind of human help? Is it just the immediacy, the less formal vibe?
I think it's probably a mix of things. These platforms often foster more intimate communities, right? Less public, perhaps less rigorously moderated environments.
More conversational.
Exactly. They prioritize real-time chat and community building over creating this perfectly structured, permanent knowledge archive. It's less about crafting the definitive answer for posterity.
And more about getting quick, informal help from your peers right now.
Yeah, much more like turning to the colleague sitting next to you, just, digitally.
Okay, so summing up, Stack Overflow's decline is this complex story. Started with those internal moderation policy shifts nudging it downwards.
Which maybe damaged the community feel early on.
Right, and then boom, dramatically accelerated by the rise of these powerful, convenient AI tools like ChatGPT.
It's a really potent example of how quickly tech can disrupt even the most established, seemingly indispensable platforms.
Yeah, real case study.
And it's a testament to how even these huge online communities can be vulnerable. It's often a combination, isn't it? Internal decisions interacting with these big external technological shifts.
The very things that made it successful, like rigorous quality control, might have become vulnerabilities in this new landscape.
Precisely, the context changed.
So the article really captures that loss, that sort of joy and pride in the old way of human-to-human knowledge sharing, that feeling of getting an upvote, solving something together.
A shared journey.
Yeah. So here's something to think about as we wrap up. As AI gets more and more sophisticated, as it weaves itself deeper into how we find information and interact, how much of that unique human connection, that shared journey of discovery, that mutual help, how much of that will we manage to preserve
Or perhaps even
or
redefine.
redefined exactly? These new digital spaces we're building, something for you to ponder as you navigate this ever-evolving world of information.